Good morning, everybody. Good morning today, and welcome to the live stream. How's everyone doing? I am Bill, the company's expert, and the word of the day is effectiveness. Effectiveness. You know, it's amazing how many people that I encounter that still don't really understand that word. They think it means efficiency. It doesn't. It basically means how closely you accomplish your goals, right? That's two different things, right? You could have accomplished your goals, but you could have been as inefficient as you could imagine in the process. You could have killed several people. You could have destroyed several lives. You could have burned up millions of dollars, but you accomplished your goal. So if that was what happened, then you would be 100% effective, but you'd probably be very inefficient. So I still see that a lot. People still use that word wrong. Anyway, welcome. I see there are 9 of you here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. This is a Q&A. So if you have any questions about anything, really, probably about how to get a job, how to pass an interview, that kind of thing, feel free to ask away in the chat, and I will answer as many as I can and try to be as helpful as I can. If you also have questions about other business-related things, feel free to fire away. I occasionally talk about entrepreneurship, and I'd love to do more of that, but how to pass a job interview seems to be a hell of a lot more popular topic. So, but everything's good. Hello, sir. Several people are here. How do you say that? Mirayala Naveen says, hello, sir. Good morning. Good morning to you, Mirayala. Thank you for being here. There's something I've said before that I think is an interesting topic is how schizophrenic HR actually is, and certainly with dealing with employees, and it goes over to recruitment and selection. On the one hand, they treat people like resources, right? HR, human resources. That's the name. That name was coined in, I believe, the 1950s, where we're going to treat people like resources, like any other resource, like raw materials, right? If our profits are down, we lay off 10% of our workforce, and there we go. Profits are back where they need to be. See, we're treating them like resources, right? Just like inventory. However, in the last 30 years, certainly, a lot of treating people like a human being has crept in. You know, people need to be motivated. People have feelings and things like this, and we have to cater to that. We have to acknowledge this. So you get this schizophrenic sort of attitude towards people in HR. On the one hand, they treat you like a number. The next moment, they treat you like a human being, but then they treat you like a number again. And we see that in the hiring process too. You call me Naveen. Okay, Naveen it is. Welcome. Stottle. Is that how you say that? Stottle? I've watched a lot of your videos and they help me transition from the military to private sector. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm glad they're helping out there, Stottle, and thank you for saying so. How to get hired as a fresher? Yes, we can certainly tackle that. And Kevin says, I'm a fresher engineer, sir. Help me for an interview. Okay, so here's the deal. When you go to a job interview, okay, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, and it's not that hard to figure out what some of the questions are going to be. They're very popular, right? Things like, tell me about yourself, right? Some variation of that usually opens the interview. And then they are going to ask you, why should we hire you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do you handle stress? You know, there's several sort of standard job interview questions. I've done videos about most of them, and the others you can certainly find out what they are from a Google search or a YouTube search or anything like that. Now, the thing that throws a lot of people, especially when they're new at this, is that they don't always ask those questions in the form that you're used to. Okay? So instead of saying, what are your strengths? Instead, they might say, what makes you a better candidate than all the others? You know, something like that, right? So a lot of people, when you're starting out, when you hear that question, you think, oh, I haven't prepared for that question. I don't know what to say. It's just another form of what are your strengths, right? And when you think about it from the interviewer's perspective, okay? What do they need to hear from you? Well, they need to hear that, first of all, you have all the things that they're looking for, that they said that they're looking for in the job posting, okay? Or at the very least, you have enough of those things that you pass. It's not going to be a problem, okay? So if they want 5 years experience in something, maybe you have 3 years, so you don't technically meet that requirement, but the point is you have enough experience to do the job no problem and to not have a huge learning curve and all this kind of stuff. So the point is, you meet that requirement. The experience is not going to be a problem. Okay? So they want to know that you have all of those. Okay? Contrary to what some people might tell you, a lot of the time when you go to a job interview, when you get into the interview, they don't have your resume memorized. Neither have they read it recently. Okay? So a lot of times you go into the interview and they honestly, they know your name, but that's it. They know that they called you for an interview, but they don't remember anything on your resume. They haven't glanced at your resume right before the interview. So they're starting from scratch, and you can assume that they're starting from scratch, okay? Unless they say otherwise or demonstrate that they have your resume memorized or something. They're starting from scratch. So what you're going to do is you're going to tell them in the course of the interview, by answering questions, that you have all of the things that they're looking for. Right? So if they said, what are your strengths? And in the job posting, it said, we're looking for someone with 5 years experience in this. When they ask you, what are your strengths? You could say, well, I have 5 years experience in this. That's one of my biggest strengths. And you know that they care about that because they said they're looking for it. Right? So that's probably the biggest thing to know when you're going to your first interviews. Also, in a nutshell, what really helps is to do mock interviews. Okay, so you get a friend or a family member that can give you a pretend job interview. Okay, the way to get good at something is to practice. So the more of those you do, the better you get. It's great preparation. It's the best preparation you could possibly do for a job interview. Get a family member, give them a list of questions, or if you want to go even further, you could say, well, you come up with some questions and ask me the questions, and we'll do a pretend interview. And then your job is to try and answer them properly. And that's the greatest practice. And as a special bonus, sometimes they can give you feedback to know how you do. So that's kind of the absolute basics. That's the fundamentals. We're going to get into, later in this live stream, we're going to get into some of the other things that they're looking for other than just how to answer those standard cookie cutter questions. Who else is here? We got Naveen again. I've quit my job and hunting for a good package. For the past 2 months, I'm not getting any calls. Please check my previous message so you will understand my question. Oh, I see. My question is I have 10 pulse years of experience in accounts payable. Is that a question? That's not really a question. Yeah, if you could rephrase your question in the form of a question, that would be helpful, and I'll be happy to answer that. Dr. Decal or Decal, I lost my sister/best friend in March. Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that. I haven't been working since then. How do I address this in an interview? Thank you. Well, look, I've been fortunate enough not to be in that situation, but if I was, at a guess, here's how I would handle it. First of all, I wouldn't bring it up proactively, okay? Don't go to the interview and open with, well, I lost my close family member. What I would do is I would keep that under your hat, meaning you don't say anything, until they ask you any kind of question related to what's this work gap, or why did you leave your last job, or, or any of that stuff. Okay. And then I would mention this. Okay. I would not go into a huge amount of detail, but I would just, maybe explain it for maybe 20 seconds or something. And I don't think any reasonable interviewer would give you a hard time with that or ask any follow-up questions. I think that's pretty cut and dried, right? So, so if you're going to an interview and they ask you like how to bring that up in an interview, that's how I would handle it. I wouldn't bring it up out of the blue. I'd wait till they asked about, your life situation. Why do you leave your last job? That kind of thing. If it were me. Sorry to hear. Hope you're doing okay. You got to take care of yourself. And I know it's easier said than done. Thank you, Kevin. Dr. Dracula. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, what I was saying earlier is if you're a fresher, if you're somebody who's just starting out, you're younger, and you don't have a lot of experience doing job interviews, the first thing you need to know is they're going to ask you those standard questions. Okay, we talked about that. The next thing is, okay, when you get to the interview, probably the biggest factor is that they're judging you on your soft skills. Okay, that's like how you communicate, how professional you are, how appropriate are the things that you're talking about. Your interpersonal skills, if you're sitting there and you're smiling and you put them at their ease as opposed to being super tense and super nervous, this kind of thing. How you choose to dress, your personal grooming, all that stuff plays a part. Okay, it's a factor. So you want to show up dressed appropriately. You want to groom yourself, so that you look reasonably professional, depending on, you look appropriate for whatever job you're applying for. Okay. So that stuff is very important too. So make sure that you're also paying attention to that. It's, how you look is not the most important thing, but it is a factor. Okay. And communication skills, if there was one to zero in on probably the most important thing, I would say it's communication skills. So a part of that is understanding protocol. Okay. What to say in what situation? What's the right thing to say? Okay. Usually we spend our entire careers or indeed our entire lives learning that. Okay. As you get older, wiser, more experienced, you learn what to say in different situations. So for example, when you meet them, you say, hello, very nice to meet you. You traditionally would shake hands. Depending on where you are in the world and what's going on, we may not be shaking hands. But, things like this. If they ask you would you please wait here? You say, certainly, thank you. And, if there's like a receptionist or someone like that you have to deal with, always treat them very politely, be very friendly. Okay. That also is a huge part of it. Okay, so that also is certainly a huge part of what's going on there. The way this stuff normally works is that you have a resume, and the resume gets you the interview, and then when you're at the interview, it's not the resume that gets you the job; it's your soft skills that get you the job. Okay. Thank you, Dorothy. Connor says, how would you go about having a low GPA? Well, I would not show up to class. I would do as little work as possible. And, no, I think what you're asking is, if you have a low GPA, how would you go about getting a job? Well, okay, you know what I just said about how your soft skills are the thing that's most important in an interview, okay? That's why you have an interview. When you think about it for a second, why would they ask you to apply remotely and send in all your your vital information, okay, your resume, your work history, maybe even a transcript if it's like your first career job. Okay, why not just hire somebody that way, right? It would be quicker, it would be simpler, right? Well, the reason why they have an interview is because blah, 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 is because they want to see how you are as a person, right? If they get along with you, if they can communicate with you, if they want to make sure there's no red flags, right? If somebody shows up to an interview and their personal hygiene is just terrible, that will probably be a problem. And the fact that they don't seem to realize that that's something that they need to devote some attention to is a red flag, right? And that'll make that candidate a high-risk employee, right? So you want to show up and you want to just assure them that dealing with you as a person is going to be fine. You're friendly, you're professional, they can relate to you, you can relate to them, that kind of stuff. If you show up and got like super offended over the way they said hello to you or something like that, that would also be a red flag. These are the things that they're checking in an interview, right? It's more about that kind of thing than what's on your resume. Okay, so that's the purpose of a job interview. They want to see how you're like as a person, and they want to make sure that everything there checks out and there's no red flags. Okay, so coming back to the question, or what I think is the question is, if you have a low GPA in school and you're trying to get, say, your first job out of school, okay, using your educational qualification, I'm assuming you've passed, okay, whatever it is that you're taking, whatever qualification, I'm assuming you've passed, you just have a lower GPA, maybe a GPA of 2 or 2, something like that. Here's what I would do. I would not put my GPA on my resume, okay, unless they specifically ask for it. You said you must put in your GPA, or, if you're filling out a job application and they say, enter your GPA here in this field, right? Unless they do that, I would not disclose my GPA if my GPA was really bad. Then, okay, the way it's going to usually work is that some places won't give you an interview because of that, but other places don't mind, okay? So you will get some bites, some people that ask you in for an interview. Then when you get to the interview, blow them out of the water with your great interpersonal skills, communication skills, showing them how friendly you are, how professional you are, things like this, okay? And you can overcome a low GPA. And you can, okay? Because, look, if you're going to take a PhD or something, then obviously your GPA is very important, okay? But if you're just getting your first sort of career job, for a lot of people, your GPA really doesn't matter that much, because there are candidates that have a very high GPA. They got a GPA of 4 or 4.5, whatever it goes up to. But the problem is they're a fail as a human being. You can't deal with them. You can't communicate with them. You try and tell them something and they argue with you a lot over everything. When you communicate something to them, they misunderstand everything you say. They are completely ineffective at making themselves clear when they communicate to you. Things like this. There are candidates like that. They might have a great GPA, but they have lots of issues working as an employee, okay? So if your GPA is not great, I would focus on winning in all those other areas, okay? So work on your communication skills, work on your interpersonal skills, learn the protocol, okay? And you do this by practicing, okay? Do mock interviews, go to lots of job interviews, as many as you can, and then do lots of mock interviews. Become an interviewing pro, and I pretty much guarantee you that your low GPA will not hold you back forever, okay? That's how these things usually go. And get many types of, apply for many types of jobs in the government, jobs in the private sector, jobs across different industries if you can, okay? I don't know what you've taken in school, but usually we can go into more than one industry, okay? Even if you have something specialized like, dentistry or how to fly an aircraft, You could go and become a pilot, or you could go and become a teacher, or, like there's different options, right? Okay, Naveen. So I have 10 plus years of experience in accounts payable, and I quit my job. The reason for a good package, but for the past 2 months, I'm not getting any calls from the recruiter. What do I need to do? Well, there's many things you could do. I don't know what you mean by pulse experience. Does that mean like on and off experience, discontinuous experience? And I don't know what you mean by a good package. The reason for a good package. Do you mean like a compensation package? But if you're not getting, like it's hard for me to give you precise advice, not knowing any specifics really, other than this. Okay, you have experience in accounts payable. Do you have a qualification in accounts payable? Okay, if you don't, and maybe that's what's holding you back, you don't have the piece of paper, is I wouldn't just apply to recruiters. I would use networking basically, okay? The single most widely used method that people use to get a job is networking, okay? Now, if you don't know what that is and that scares you because you think you have to know a million people, look into it, because that's not what it is, okay? It's about, in a nutshell, it's about being proactive and not waiting for a job to be posted, okay, for you to apply to it, and then you're dealing with a recruiter. Instead, it's for you to be proactive. You contact hiring managers, people who are managers in companies, okay? And they haven't just posted a job and you're applying for it. Instead, you're just looking at companies where you'd like to work, okay? Oh, I see you've got a big accounts payable department in this chemical plant, right? Well, you would contact the chief financial officer or the head of department for the accounting department or something, and you'd say, hello, my name is X. I have 10 years experience in accounts payable. I'm great at what I do. I know about your company. I like your company. If ever you're looking for someone in the accounts payable department, please let me know, because I'd love to work for you guys. Thank you very much. And what you do is you blast those out, okay, to many, many companies that have potential to hire you, okay? And to make a long story short, that works, okay? A lot of times people are thinking, I got to hire someone, but they haven't yet posted the job. But then your message lands in their lap and they think, hey, maybe I could avoid all this work if I just check out this person. And if they work out, if they have everything I'm looking for, maybe if we could just go with them, that would be perfect, okay? And that is a thing. I get people arguing with me on this. It's like this happens every day to a lot of people. This is how executives get jobs, right? Exclusively, pretty much. But anyone can do this, and most people do. I don't know what the stats are. I think they're like 80%. I think it's 80% or 75% or something like that of all jobs. People get them through networking. They don't get them by answering job ads. So look into that. Okay, that would be my advice. There's a lot to this. It's nothing I can explain in 5 minutes. Look into that, okay? And just for the record, like you can see on the screen, I have a course that talks about how to get hired, and that's one of the big things that it runs you through from beginning to end. So if that's of any interest to you, I do have that, but look into it. Okay, Amir says, I don't know, lately I'm not so smooth in interviews. What would you recommend? Listen, don't beat yourself up too much, because there's a hell of a lot of bad interviewers out there, okay? You can take it from me. And unfortunately, I've been to interviews, I've supervised interviews, and I've taught people in university how to give interviews, and most people doing it are very bad at it. They really are, okay? So So don't feel too bad. You might have just gotten a bunch of bad interviewers. But what you can do is you can work on this. Practice makes perfect. Okay? So I'd recommend, like I keep saying, mock interviews. Grab a friend or a family member, okay? And just say, could you give me a hand? I need you to do a pretend job interview with me. You ask me questions, and I'm going to try and answer them. Okay? And you do this, and you keep doing this, okay? A lot of people, they hear that and they go, no, I'm not going to do that. And then they don't really rehearse. And so when they go to an actual job interview, they don't do as well. Okay, but that's the thing to do. Practice makes perfect. You work at it, and you get good. Okay, it's the same thing with public speaking skills. Okay, or negotiation skills. It's the same thing. Practice makes perfect. The more of it you do, the better you get. It's like playing a musical instrument. If you want to learn the piano or something, like whatever instrument, it's hard to just learn it from a book and then sit down at the piano and just play the piece of music perfectly, right? You practice over and over and over again. Knowing where the notes are and knowing how it's supposed to sound is not the whole picture. You've got to actually practice doing it. That's like a job interview. Just knowing answers to questions, that's a great start, but that doesn't mean you're going to do amazing at an interview. You go to the interview, you're nervous, you got people staring at you, they don't ask you the questions that you're expecting, things like this. Or they ask strange questions, or there are other issues. Maybe you have a hard time understanding the person. Maybe the person is being very, very rude. Maybe they're being unprofessional and, or something like that. How do you handle that? Well, practice makes perfect, right? It also gives you confidence, right? People ask, like, how do I become confident in an interview? Well, practice, And it starts number one by you learning the answers to most of the common questions. Then you do practice interviews with somebody just to give you a hand, okay? So it's simulating the real thing a little more. And then you try and go to as many interviews as you possibly can, right? And, it's a sort of 3-stage sort of thing. And by the end of that stage, you're going to be a pro. And you're not going to be nervous, or, you might be a little bit nervous, but it's really under control. And, you end up not minding it after a while. It's not this huge, stressful thing that looms large in your mind, before you do it. Lee W says, I interviewed with an organization several times in the past and wasn't hired. I recently applied to a position identical to my current one and didn't even get an interview. Should I just forget? Listen, Lee. Here's the deal, okay? You can't look at these anecdotal cases and draw conclusions from it, okay? You can't. It's not a reflection on you. You're not doing anything wrong, okay? Whether you get a job is really more of a function of what's going on the interviewer side than anything you're doing, right? This is why we can apply for a job and do terribly. They say, no, this candidate's a non-starter. And then you go to your next job interview with a different company, you give pretty much the same answers, and then they hire you. They say, yes, this person is awesome, right? Now, you haven't changed. What's changed is the other party. These people over here in the first company, they were looking for something completely different than what you have, right? Whereas the second company that hired you, they were looking for something very, very similar to what you have, right? So depending on what they're looking for, you could either, be a total non-starter, or you could be an absolute perfect fit, right? You haven't changed. They've changed. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is not to really, take too seriously the outcome of the first interview, right? And I can tell you from being on the other side of this and sort of being privy to a lot of hiring processes is that people are looking for really silly things. Okay, for various reasons, they're just looking for just silly things that they shouldn't be looking for. Okay? And if you don't measure up, that's almost a reflection on how good you are, in some cases. So don't worry about that. It's a numbers game. The goal is to go to as many interviews as you can, and they should be varied, different types of interviews with different types of companies, big companies, small companies, in different industries if possible, depending on what your career path is. Okay? Like, for example, if you have a degree in chemistry, you can go into about 50 different things, right? If you have a degree in business, you can go into about 500 different things or more, like different industries, right? So don't just apply for the same type of job in the same place using the same method. Okay, vary your method as much as possible. Just try and get different kinds of interviews, and try getting a job different ways. You answer job ads, but you're also doing networking because that's far more promising. Okay, and it's a numbers game, and sooner or later it'll just be serendipity. You will connect with a person who's just happening to look for what you have right now, right? That's how it goes. A lot of young people, they apply for some jobs, they get rejected, and they take it very, very seriously, like it's a complete rejection of them. It isn't. Okay, you realize this later on when you've seen more of what goes on. So don't worry about it too much. Just keep going. Okay, Amir says, most of the time they don't care how well did I study never comes up. All they ask is about experience. Yeah, well, you're probably describing recruiters, right? Because recruiters, because they themselves don't know how to assess somebody for the job they're hiring for because their background is not in the job they're hiring for. They like to fall back on these convenient metrics, and the biggest one they use is years of experience. How many years of experience do you have in this, right? That's how they measure your value, right? The problem is that that's unrealistic, because the way they think is they think that in order for you to be good at something, you have to have done it before, right? That's how they think, okay? Now, you and I both know that that's false, okay? It's not necessarily true, put it that way. But that's not how a recruiter thinks. Now, if you took this to its conclusion, no one would ever change careers, right? Because, you might have 10 years experience in dentistry and you've decided, nope, I want to be an airline pilot, right? So you get your qualification how to fly a plane. You get your pilot's license. The first thing they might ask you in a job interview is, how many years experience do you have flying? And the answer, of course, is 0, because the last 10 years you've been a dentist, right? But does that mean that nobody can make that jump? Of course not. People do it every day, It's just that they get those jobs, their first job, through networking, where what they do is they meet somebody, they meet the hiring manager, and they have a conversation with the hiring manager, and the hiring manager says, I love this person as a person. They're intelligent, they're smart, they're great to deal with, they're friendly. When we talk about, airport regulations, when we talk about the aerospace industry, when we talk about the issues that pilots face today, this person seems to be, they're pretty with it. They understand, what's going on, and they seem to, have the right opinions, and they seem to have their head on their shoulders, and they know what they're talking about. So, yeah, I'm going to give them a chance. As like your starting job in the airline industry, as I don't know, I'm not a pilot, like a junior pilot, a co-pilot, I don't know, whatever rank that is. They'll say, yeah, I think this person has what it takes. They can start apprenticing under a pilot here. They seem to have a passion for the industry. They know a lot of stuff. So that's how you can overcome that. If you go via a recruiter, which the majority of job seekers actually don't do, believe it or not. Young people always don't believe this when I say it, but don't take my word for it. Go do your own research. You'll see that's true. Okay. Most people don't get jobs through recruiters by applying for jobs. They get it through networking. Okay. And the higher up you go, the more that's the case. Worker level jobs, it's something like 50-50. 50% go through a recruiter and apply for a posted job. 50% don't. They get it through networking. Okay. That's how that works. Sir, how to attend the interview without fear? Simple, practice. Okay? That's all you have to do. It's just repetition. It's like somebody saying, how do I give a piano recital without being nervous and without making mistakes? Well, practice. It's exactly the same thing. The more you do, the better you get. So it's just that simple, okay? Think of any other thing in your life that you might fear, okay? Let's say you want to go skydiving as a hobby, right? You like the idea, but you're really nervous about somebody essentially pushing you out of a plane, right? Well, how do you overcome that fear? Is you practice. You first start, you start bungee jumping or, or whatever, like you work your way up, right? And then the more you do, you quickly lose the fear of doing it because to you now it's routine. So you've got to make job interviewing routine. And you do that with the mock interviews, the pretend interviews with a friend or family member. Okay, you start out by doing that. And it's great because when you're doing a pretend interview with a family member, you're probably going to be a bit nervous. Most people are in the beginning. They, you tell your parent or your sibling or your best friend, can you give me a hand with this? Ask me some questions and let's do this like it's a real job interview. So they ask you a question and, you don't know what to say. You feel kind of weird, right? That's good. You see, you're practicing dealing with nervousness and fear. And then when you can interview with a family member and you don't get nervous at all and you get all the questions right, then you can start interviewing with strangers. When you apply for jobs and you interview with an interviewer, then in the beginning you're a little bit nervous, but it's nothing you can't handle. And then you do, say, 10 or 20 of those, and then you start to really get some confidence because you see how it goes. You see how similar each interview is to the last one. You keep hearing the same questions over again and you know the answers to those, right? So that's where the confidence comes from. Listen to me, I sound like a motivational speaker, which I'm really not. But basically that's it. That's how you do it. Okay, life is long, and you got many years to work on this, and each time you do it, it'll be a little bit easier. Joshua Dave Dingle says, I had an interview yesterday and I got hired on the spot. Wow, congratulations. Your videos really helped a lot because I got to use them yesterday. Well, congratulations, Joshua. That's great news. You should be very proud and very relieved. That's the end of a long, arduous job search. Amir says, very helpful videos. I completely agree. Well, thank you also, Amir. That's very kind of you to say. Jack Alexander says, good morning, Bill. Good morning, Jack. It's good to meet you. Do remote workers still have opportunities of advancement in their current companies, or will it be a challenge because they are in the office? Okay, so remote workers meaning that you're working from home, or remote workers meaning that you're working in a branch office? Listen, the way this stuff traditionally works, okay, is all things being equal, okay? All things being equal, the closer you are to the boss, to the decision maker, the more you will be considered for promotions and advancement and things like that, okay? So, I mean, I don't know how it works in your organization where you are, but generally speaking, that's going to be how it works. So if you're stuck out in a branch office away from the headquarters, you are, all things being equal, at a little bit of a disadvantage for moving up, okay? If you are a remote worker, so you're working from home, but you're doing it over teleconferencing and, the internet, over Zoom and things like this, I imagine the same thing applies, okay? I don't know that for a fact, but I imagine it does, because you have less of a presence. Like, I don't know if it changes things having like this, like you have a camera and they can see your face when you talk. I don't know if that really affects it, but certainly if you're just, like, traditionally, you would be over the phone, right? So they don't see your face, they just hear your voice. That makes you also more distant in a psychological way, right? Now, obviously, there's exceptions to this. There's many exceptions to this, but all things being equal, that is a factor. So hopefully that makes sense. Alex says, Spanish language, for example, is used to find a good job from Barcelona. Yeah, it can be. I mean, it could be pretty essential if they need someone who speaks Spanish. Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot. You're welcome. Hello, Alex. You're perfectly welcome. Amir says, how do I know if my answer is what the interviewer wants to hear or the correct answer? Other than reading their body language, you don't. Okay. You could take your best guess, but, how do you know if it's what they wanted to hear? You don't. And sometimes even if they give you feedback and they say, good answer, right? You still don't know if that's genuine or they're just saying that to be polite, right? So the thing to do, as I said before, is not obsess over this stuff, okay? You give it your best shot. Recognize that the biggest factor is of the outcome, how it turns out, is them, not you, okay? Depends what they happen to be looking for. So you just answer the best you can, and then you move on. Don't look back. Don't play psychological games with yourself where you're running the stuff over in your mind and going, I should have said this other thing. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should do that. That is not helpful, okay? Focus instead on the next opportunity, on getting another interview, okay? Never wait for the phone to ring. Just keep going. Try to get more interviews, go to more interviews, okay? Because it's a numbers game. It's like rolling a dice, right? If you only roll it once and go, I didn't get a 6, I only got a 1, and then I'm going to engage in some, real soul searching on why I didn't roll a 6. Maybe I should have held my wrist like this. If only I'd held my wrist like this. It's like, no. Focus on rolling the dice again, and then again, because sooner or later, preferably sooner, you're going to get the 6, right? It's not really dependent on anything you do. Obviously, you try and do the best interview you can. That's all you can do, right? The more preparation you do is better, but it's still a huge amount of random probability involved in this process, okay? It depends what they happen to be looking for, and you will not know that, and there's no way to find out what that is. Okay? So don't sweat it, okay? Just keep moving forward. Now, if you've done 150 interviews in a row and no one's hired you, then you can maybe start questioning, okay, maybe I should be changing my technique. Maybe I should focus on something else, or I should find another way of getting a job other than what I'm doing. Or maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, right? Like you would change something. Okay, so unless you've gotten 150 job interviews in a row and never been hired, I just keep going. Good morning, Juan. It's good to see you here. And the bro stud is here. My bro, or my bra, isn't it? Bra. Good evening from Denmark. Good evening, or good morning from Canada. Are you in Copenhagen? Copenhagen? Maybe you could settle this once and for all. Is it Copenhagen or Copenhagen? I get people saying both to me all the time. I feel like I should correct someone, but I don't, because I honestly don't know. So let me know. Weather Dude. That's an awesome name, by the way. Weather Dude. I have an exit interview coming up with HR. Oh, those are fun. I've done about 100 of those. Can I discuss concerns about not receiving performance reviews as required? Okay, listen here. I don't know if this qualifies as a truth bomb, but I'm just going to be honest with you here. What they want, okay, is they want you to tell them why you're leaving. Okay, that's what they want. The problem is that they don't want to hear what you've got to say to that question. Okay? If it were me, I wouldn't really say anything. Because it's very tempting in an exit interview to say, oh, why am I leaving? Oh, you mean the times that you treated me like crap, and the times that, you reduced my pay, or you didn't listen to me, or you didn't give me any support, or blah, blah, blah. Like, you really just want to unload on them, okay? Because usually there's some emotion there, right? Don't. Just don't. It's not helpful for you. It's not to your advantage to do that. And a lot of the times they're not really listening anyway. Okay? Some people are, but most people aren't. Most companies, they aren't. And all it's going to result in is that they will think worse of you. They will think, oh, I really hate that guy. I'm glad he's gone, or, whatever. Right? So that would be my advice. I mean, whatever. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. But some people really take the opportunity to unload, just to oh, you want to know why I left? Let me tell you. And then they just go into a tirade of disdain, and it's just not helpful. Okay? So I would just say well, I'm just ready to move on, ready to do more. And it's then you just, number one, you don't prolong it. If you're going to leave, just get the hell out of there. Why dwell on it? Why take a long time to leave and bring up all this stuff again? You've already made your decision, And when I would do exit interviews, I'd have some employees that just, they just didn't say anything. They just kept it short. They didn't really go into the reasons or the details. And then I had others that just unleashed, It's like prodding a sleeping tiger, with a stick, poking a sleeping tiger with a stick. They just dial it to 10. And, I would present this to the other managers and things involved, and it's they wouldn't care. So, that's all I have to say about that. Juan says, your material and advice is spot on and helped me out with great results. Well, thank you, Juan. I'm glad it's helpful. And it's also, it's very nice of you to say that. That makes me feel good. Manuel G says, I have an interview in which I have the basic requirements You're currently studying a master's in the topic. Okay. What do you recommend me to say in the interview? In which I have the basic requirements. Well, I mean, that's so general. I can't really answer it. I don't even know what you're studying. I don't know what you're interviewing for. I don't know where you are in your career. So sorry, just too general for me to really say. I would answer all the questions right. I would prepare for it. And, I wouldn't advance maybe that you're doing a master's. If the master's is not required for the job, I wouldn't necessarily advance the fact that to tell them that you're doing it, because it implies that you want to do more than what you're qualified for now. So if they were to hire you based on what you're qualified for now, the implication is that you don't want to stay here. You're looking to do more. And that makes you a high-risk candidate. Okay. Anmal says, hey, Bill, is it important to make good rapport with the interviewer before they start an interview? Well, when you say before, it's important to do it the moment you meet them. So if you meet them for a couple of minutes before they actually start an interview, they come and welcome you at the reception desk or the waiting area. They offer you refreshment, they offer to take your coat, or whatever, make chit chat, that kind of thing. Yes. It's good to establish a good rapport there the moment you meet them. If by before you mean before the day of your interview, you're emailing them or messaging them and trying to strike up a conversation with them, no, that's not really necessary. And if they're not really trying to initiate that themselves, I wouldn't necessarily try and do much of that. If you have to communicate with them with an email or something, I would definitely make it friendly, professional, but friendly. Okay, that always helps. For example, if you have to send in your resume or something, you could say, hello, I hope you're having a great day, something like that. Please find my resume attached. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you this Saturday for the interview. Best regards. Something like that. You're being friendly. You're trying to do that. But I wouldn't go out of my way to try and strike up a conversation with them before the interview event. Okay? Put it that way. That's just me. Recruiters generally are busy. So they have a lot of communication with a lot of different people. So just adding to that for no real reason usually is not appreciated. Okay, they are different than almost any other person on the planet, where they would respond usually favorably to somebody going out of their way to try and be personable and stuff like that. Recruiters, because of the nature of their job, they usually don't. Juan says they connected with me on LinkedIn. Well, good. Just as long as your LinkedIn profile is professional and there's nothing on there that's going to be an issue. Yeah, that's great. Maria. Oh, I got to read this. Maria Eugenia de Lima Velez. Now that is a title. I like that. Good morning, teacher. I'm glad to see you again. Well, I'm glad to see you. Thank you for being here. Amir. Going on interviews is like the first date in a way. Yes, it is. First and only date a lot of times. Min Min is familiar. Min, I think you might have been here before. A company is looking for who worked with clients from their country. I don't have that experience, but I know the country, mentality, etc., and speak their language. How can I answer about experience? Well, how you would answer is based on what experience you have. Now, if you don't have that experience, you could say what you just said in this paragraph. Okay. Alternatively, you would try to, like, the thing is, like this is a great example, okay, of what we were talking about earlier. Okay. If they're looking for this, and for them, it's a showstopper. It's a deal breaker if you don't have it, right? then there's not really much you can do, because I don't recommend going in there and lying about it. So you've got to basically say like, well, I don't have that, but this is what I do have. I am familiar with this. I've had interactions with these people, blah, blah, that kind of thing. Okay. Now, if it's a show, okay, now let's say hypothetically, this was a deal breaker. It's an absolute requirement and you don't have it. Okay. Let's pretend that that's the situation. If it were me, what I would do, and this is like every company you're talking to, or the number one company that's like your dream job. Okay. It's very important. So if you don't have this experience, but you'd like to have it, what I would try and do is I would use networking techniques, okay, to contact people at that company, like one of their customers, whatever they were looking for. You're looking for someone who has experience with one of their customers. And, say like, look, I'm very interested in your company. I'm interested in this industry, and I'm wondering if I could, if I could ask you your opinion, get your expert opinion about where this industry is going, or, would you time to grab a coffee or a drink or whatever, at a time of your convenience, please let me know what might be convenient for you. I'll meet you anywhere, anytime, this kind of thing. And you use those techniques, and then you could sit down with maybe an executive at that company, one of their client companies, and talk to them about the business, get their opinion on where the industry is going and what's the way forward and what are some of the challenges coming down the pike, And then when you go back to this company and they ask you this question, they say like, no, thank you. I got a Starbucks out of it. When they ask you this question, you say, well, look, I haven't worked for any of the client companies, but I know several people at the client companies. And just the other day, I had a meeting with this person at this company, vice president, whatever, at this company. And they were telling me about where the industry is going and what their perspective is on their business and how they relate to their customers and stuff. So I believe I have a pretty good perspective on that. That's not going to be a problem. Or you could say, well, I got them to give me a tour, of their company and this kind of stuff just last week, something like that. So it's a way of sort of quickly trying to get some kind of substitute for that requirement if it's an absolute requirement. Okay. If you want to know precisely how to do that, take my course, because that's what I talk about. That's one of the things I go into really in depth in my course. Okay. Or just do your own research on how to do that kind of thing. But that would be what I would recommend. Okay. Can we have a good career in service management? Yeah, you can. Yep. I mean, service management that term is almost all encompassing, right? I've worked in what you could term as service management. Technically what I'm doing now is service management, right? I'm providing a service and I'm deciding how I'm going to do it. And I decided to do a live stream, so, hey, it's a pretty all encompassing term. Rafal, if I'm saying that right, says, hi, Bill, how to behave in a situation where the hiring manager is asking about how will you choose a more important task in situation you have not much time? Well, I don't fully understand the question. How will you choose a more important task in a situation? You're going to have to rephrase that because I don't precisely know what that means. Okay. If you can do that, I'll be happy to answer. Ronald M. says, I was hired and will start a new position next week. Do you have any advice on how to succeed? This will be a big change for me, including a new city and state. Okay, so it is quite a jump. What I would say is, okay, your immediate supervisor, okay, I would, as much as possible, I try to get as much FaceTime with them, like interact with them without pestering them. Okay, that's what I would do. So And then at the end of your first week, for example, I would go to your immediate supervisor, at a time when they're not busy, they're not like stressed out or anything like that, not upset. And I would say just, hey, you got a few minutes, and hopefully they say yes. And then you have a private one-on-one conversation with them and say, so how am I doing? Like, is there something that you would like to see me do different? Or do you have any advice? Something like that. Just because that does two things. Number one, you first of all get some feedback on what they would like you to change. Okay. But also it signals to them that you care. You care about doing a good job, and you care about meeting their expectations. And that counts for a lot. Okay. So more than anything, that's a single thing I would do that, and don't just make it a one-time only thing. Like maybe at the end of your second week, you don't have to make a big deal out of it, but just say, hey, you got a moment, how am I doing? Would you like me to do this other way, or do you have any other feedback for me? Just a quick sort of conversation like that. And if you keep doing that, say like you don't want to do it necessarily every week, but maybe certainly once a month. Okay. If you do that to your immediate boss, your immediate supervisor, very quickly you will start doing the job in the way that they want you to do the job. And they'll also have gotten the message that you really care about being a good employee. And that's like a win-win. Okay, so that would be my advice for that. Good luck to you, Ronald. Joe G, Bill, I barely made it and only have 5 minutes to stay on because of my schedule. I'm hoping to send you my message privately. Do you do paid Zoom meetings? No, sorry, I don't. This is kind of my vehicle for sort of interacting with the public, these live streams. You could always send me an email, I suppose, but yeah, this is the way to do it. Listen, I'm here every Wednesday. Okay, so if it doesn't work out today, maybe next week might be better. Satyam says, hi, Bill. I am planning to apply. How dare you spell my name with a lowercase b? I'm just joking. It's okay. Satyam. Hi, Bill. I am planning to apply for telecom jobs in the USA. You also didn't capitalize the USA, so I'll let it slide this time. I'm planning to apply for telecom jobs in the USA with 2 years of experience back here in India. Is it a bit challenging to land up a job with visa being sponsored by the company itself? Sorry, Satyam. Like visas and international immigration is really not my deal. I'm not in the USA, so I can't give advice on how to get a visa or how to best go about it between India and the USA. So sorry about that. Other people, I think, know about that better than I do. Juan. How do you say your last name? Orozco. Is that how you say that? Juan Orozco? That's an awesome name, by the way. Any name with like 3 O's and a Z in it is really good. What is a great way to sustain momentum after a great interview? What is the balance of effective and professional communication? Listen, here's the deal. Okay, you have an interview, and presumably the interviewer signals to you in some way that it was a great interview. They thought you did well. Okay, that's great. That's encouraging. Okay, however, unfortunately, it doesn't really hold any water. Okay, the only thing that matters is if they then present you with a written job offer. That's the only thing that matters. Everything before that occurs is meaningless. If they praise you to the sky and say like, oh my God, you're like the best candidate we've ever interviewed, I think you're absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to get you on board, blah, blah, blah. That's nice. It's nice to hear that stuff, but it doesn't hold any water. Okay. So what I would do, okay, honestly, is I would then wait for the offer. If that's what you're expecting next, if that's what the implication is, I would wait for that. If it's a second interview, maybe you did the first interview and it went really well, I would wait for the second interview. I wouldn't, be sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring and then sending like follow-up after follow-up after follow-up and then getting all nervous and second-guessing yourself and hand-wringing over it. I would be moving forward up until the point where I get a written job offer, okay? My plans don't change. I keep searching for opportunities, finding them, and pursuing them, okay? I don't stop to focus on this thing that I did unless it turns into a real viable option, okay? Because the thing is, how can I put this politely? As you guys no doubtedly have figured out or already know, the bullshit factor for like HR and like recruitment and selection is extremely high. These people, they will never be truthful with you, okay? And I mean, this is coming from a former CEO. They will never be truthful with you, okay? I mean, that's saying something when I have to say that. Like in situations where you could be honest with somebody because it doesn't have any consequences if you do or not. It doesn't matter. They still choose not to be honest. I don't understand it. So whatever. And if you ask for feedback, even if they give you feedback, usually the feedback is false. I mean, there's always exceptions, but I'm playing, on the vast majority of situations here, right? So, that's the reality. So if that's how they treat people, and they do, this is how they typically treat the average job seeker, okay? Sometimes it's somewhat justified, sometimes it isn't, but regardless, that's kind of the behavior you can expect. So, knowing this, you tailor your behavior, okay? You don't take anything they say to you too seriously, okay? Whether it's praise or whether it's criticism, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is, are they offering you a job, okay? If they are, and it's in writing, then we can start to get a bit more serious, okay? Until that point, you just smile and nod and wave, and then you pursue your own interest, which is interviewing with more companies and that kind of stuff. Okay? Okay. The balance of effective and professional communication. Well, I mean, how do you communicate effectively and professionally with someone who's basically lying and not only acting in their own self-interest, which we all do, but in addition, not even being professional or polite about it? Like, how do you communicate professionally with these people? You can't. If they ask you for something, you just be very friendly and forthcoming and provide it. Could you please send me your references? Sure. Here you go. Thank you very much. Let me know if you need anything else. But that's about it. Satcham, you got me there, Bill. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't be more helpful on that, Satya. But I mean, I believe there are people that specialize in that area. Like if you're trying to go from India to the US and, on a work visa or, whatever, there's people that like, they have lots of experience in that and they lay it all out for you and everything you need to do. So find one of those people. They will be, they're out there and they help people do that. Holy crap, I think I've gotten to the end of my questions here. That's awesome. The bro stud. YouTube shadow blocks my messages. Oh, what kind of messages are you sending there, the bro stud? I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you can get that through. Great video, pal. Thank you, Gerson, old buddy, old pal. As usual. I came to this live faster than you say Bolt Sprint. Well, that's a very nice thing to say. Thank you very much, Gerson. Anmal, hey Bill, How to ask someone for a job referral, specifically recruiters on LinkedIn. A job referral. I don't think that's super important, to be honest. I've never ever done that. I've never helped anyone do that. It doesn't seem to matter. So what you're doing, so let me see if I understand what the meaning is here. You're going to contact your recruiter and ask what? Like for them to provide, like, here's this other job that these other people are hiring right now. Check that out. Is that what you're hoping to get from them? Like, I just don't deal with recruiters on LinkedIn, and I don't recommend that anyone deals with recruiters on LinkedIn. I mean, you don't need to. LinkedIn is an amazing tool to go directly to the managers, the hiring managers, the people who are actually hiring. See, the way it works is that inside an organization, there'll be a manager of some function. Okay, there'll be a manager of a group of people, a team, whatever you want to call it. And they realize that, oh, I need another employee. I need another team member or whatever in my team. Okay. So they then, if it's a large organization, they then get approval to hire someone. The approval comes down. And then usually what happens is the hiring manager will contact the HR department and say, okay, I need to hire someone from my department. Here's the approval. Let's get together and sort out what you need from me so that you can go and find some candidates, right? So the recruiter whose job is to find candidates, that's their job, okay? Let's say the head of the accounting department is looking for a junior accountant. I've got 10 junior accountants. I need one more, okay? So they go to the HR department and they say, we need to hire another junior accountant, okay? So what do you need from me? And the recruiter says, okay, let's see. Well, I need you can either write the job description or you could describe to me what the job is and I'll write the job description. And I need from you to tell me what the requirements, like what are the requirements that you're going to need in the candidates, okay? And the hiring manager, the head of the accounting department, provides all that to the recruiter. The recruiter writes it up. The recruiter posts it publicly, like on social media or the company website, or they'll work through partners, like maybe they'll get it posted on Indeed or something like that. Okay, so it's out there. The posting is out in the world. The recruiter provides their contact information for the candidates to apply, okay? Or I guess if it's a big company, it'll go through the company website or whatever they have. But all the applications come to the recruiter. And then the recruiter, one way or another, will filter them, okay? And might even do a first round of interviews just themselves and the candidate, okay? To just like sort of filter out the ones that are clearly, non-starters. Then, when they have a more of a short list, the recruiter themselves doesn't know who they should hire. They don't understand anything about accounting, so they don't know what candidate should be hired. So at that point, they will bring in the hiring manager, the chief accountant, and say, okay, let's schedule some interviews. Like the recruiter schedules the interviews, and then you go to an interview with the candidate, the recruiter, and the hiring manager, right? And it's up to the hiring manager who they want to hire. Okay, the recruiter might consult and say, well, I don't know, I've done a background check on them and it says this, But other than that, it's mainly up to the hiring manager, the chief accountant, on who they're going to hire. Okay, that's the process. So if you're on LinkedIn, I wouldn't worry about contact. Just for me, what I'd recommend for people is, instead of contacting recruiters who are swamped with a million people that all want jobs, right? LinkedIn is an amazing tool to contact the hiring managers themselves. Okay. And if you do it properly, if you understand the protocol for how to do it, You can achieve some amazing results that way. You contact the hiring manager, the chief accountant, and you say, hello, I'm a fully qualified junior accountant. And, I solved this problem and I love your company and I'm hoping to work in this area. And if ever you're looking for somebody, please let me know because I'd love the chance to interview and maybe see if I can help out. Something like that. And the hiring manager gets this and goes, whoa, this is like exactly what I was looking for, So the hiring manager then tells the recruiter, okay, schedule an interview with this person. I want to talk to this person. Or the hiring manager just goes and meets with you on their own. They send a reply and says, hey, could you meet me at my office in 2 days at this time? And, usually you would say, sure, right? And they meet you, they like you, and all of a sudden you jump to the top of the pile because you're the only candidate that they've met. And the person who makes the decision likes you. Okay? That's networking. That's how that process works. So if you're on LinkedIn already, don't connect, in my opinion, my informed opinion, don't connect with a million recruiters. That's kind of beside the point. I don't suppose there's any harm, but the real advantage is connecting with hiring managers. So hopefully that makes sense, Anmol. The Bro Stud. I am from Copenhagen. Yes, I pronounce it Hagen. Hagen. Fun fact, the translation of Copenhagen is buyers, traders, harbor. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Denmark had an empire way back when, and that doesn't surprise me. So thank you for clearing that up. So Hagen. So you say Hagen. You're from Denmark and you pronounce it Copenhagen. Cool. I learned something today. I thought you would have pronounced it Copenhagen. I hear Americans say Copenhagen. So okay, the Bro Stud. I have a lot of interview experience from both sides of the table, and often when I have tried to apply for a new position, I get a not good interviewer. How do you critique an interviewer and when not to? What do you mean by critique? Tell the interviewer that they're no good? Buddy, it sounds like you need to talk to somebody other than a recruiter. A lot of recruiters, look, for those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I kind of beat up on recruiters a bit. There are honestly some good ones, okay? Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad ones. People that don't know how to do an interview. Honestly, this is their job. This is their 9 to 5. And yet they do terrible interviews. I don't understand it myself, okay? People who don't seem to like people have chosen to go into a profession where they got to deal with people all day. I don't understand it. Okay? I have seen some recruiters do amazing interviews, but I've also seen them do pathetically bad ones, okay? Where they're rude, they're unprofessional, they ask just idiotic questions. They're unclear. They don't seem to understand protocol, or they don't have advanced or even competent interpersonal skills. So yeah, there's a lot of those around. And I feel especially sorry for younger people that have to sort of deal with that, because those people tend to be the gatekeepers of sort of worker level jobs, You can bet that when they're interviewing for middle manager or up, like executives, board members, people like that, they don't allow those people to interview those type of candidates. They get the people that actually understand how to do an interview to do it. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. So like critiquing an interviewer, if you mean like giving them feedback on how they interviewed, I don't think it's something I wouldn't do. I don't think there's any point to that. As human beings, we don't like to hear that we're wrong or that we did something wrong or that somebody doesn't appreciate something we said or did. We don't like to hear that. Even when they're totally in the right, okay? We don't like hearing it. And the only end result is they think they end up hating the person that told them that they were no good, right? Or that they did something wrong. That's the only real outcome, right? So it's kind of a pointless thing. So instead of worrying about that, I would try and put yourself in a situation where the person interviewing you is actually personable and good. And usually higher level hiring managers are those people. So I would focus on those. Once again, like, not to always plug my course or anything, but the course that's right on the screen there, where is it? Here. That goes into all the details of how to do that. Joseph says, what's the best way to approach a salary raise? Well, that's one of those tricky kind of things. Like, you see, the thing is, negotiation is not about like persuading somebody. Like, negotiation, some people think it's almost like a sales type thing where you persuade someone that they should do it, or you nag them, or, that's not negotiation. Negotiation it's about forcing them, right? If you want them to do something, you make it advantageous for them to do it. You don't make it so that they're doing you a favor by doing it. You make it so that they only care about their own self-interest, and you make it so that it's in their own self-interest to do this thing that you want, right? So what that translates to is, if you want a raise, okay, what do you have to bargain with? Well, I mean, you could bargain with several things. Hypothetically, you could say like, well, if you don't give me this raise, I'm basically going to I'm going to slack off. I'm going to be a bad employee. That usually can backfire against you. But the most obvious thing is to say, look, if you don't give me this raise, I'm out of here. I'm leaving, because other companies will pay me more money, even if you don't. Okay. If you don't think I'm worth it, that's fine. Other companies do think I'm worth it. Okay. So I will leave. Right? Now, this isn't just an empty threat. Okay. In order for this to be effective, you have to be prepared for someone to call your bluff. Okay. So the way to do it is that if you really honestly feel that you deserve more money, go and get a competing job offer in your hand. Okay. And then whatever this person says, you'll be making more money. Okay. So either they say, yes, okay, fine, we'll match this offer, or exceed it. Great, you're making more money, you win. If they say no, no, you're not worth more money, and you say, hey, but I've got another, I'm telling you, another company is willing to pay me more, and they say, okay, well, we're not prepared to pay you more. You say, okay, goodbye, right? And then you end up making more. So that's the way to do it. Like, that's how you would do things properly, right? But that's not the answer that a lot of people want to hear. What they want to hear is, they want to hear, what words do I use to persuade my boss to just pay me more money, right? So I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, you can say all kinds of things, but ultimately at the end of the day, if the other person is competent, they will see through that and call your bluff, okay? The problem is, every single person on the planet believes that they deserve more money, okay? They have done studies of this in business. They've, over many, many decades, everybody feels that they are more important than they actually are. Everybody feels that they are more valuable than they actually are, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you can actually that you're not being exploited. Some people are being exploited, and they're being paid well below their actual value, right? But if that's the case, then those people should be able to get a better job. If they're honestly being paid way below what they're worth, then it shouldn't be a real challenge to get a competing job offer, right? So how do you know? How do you know if you're actually more valuable, or it's just, you feel you're more valuable? It's a psychological thing. Well, go and get that alternate job offer. What a lot of wise bosses will do is they will call your bluff. They'll say, no, we're not paying you more. And what normally happens is that in like 95% of cases, the employees stay and do their job for the same amount of money. That's disappointing for a lot of people, but that's true. Because everybody's pulling this. I deserve more money. I deserve more money. Okay? So I'm giving you a way to actually have it work out in your favor to get more money. Okay? But you got to put in a little bit of work. You got to get that competing job offer. Okay? And now I realize that people don't like to hear that, but that's kind of the reality. And I mean, there's obviously exceptions to everything, but that's generally how it goes. Finally got the message through. YouTube bans the B word. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, probably. You got to keep it somewhat professional, I guess. I assume. Not that you would know from the way some business people talk. I came from the railroad originally. In the railroad industry. So it's like, if you didn't have 3 or 4 F-bombs in every sentence you said, for no reason whatsoever, it just wasn't, it wasn't on, If you told somebody something without slamming your fist down on their desk, it just didn't carry any weight, So yeah, it's a bit weird. Okay, Gerson says, have you listened about what? John Sonmez? He has a great book called Soft Skills, and I could notice that you both agree on almost everything. He just focuses in software developers, great advices. No, sorry, I haven't heard of John Sonmez. Not that I'm really super informed. The great thing of being in my situation is I don't have to be informed about what's going on in the rest of the world if I don't want to. So I've been really taking that to its limit. So yeah. But no, I mean, look, what I'm saying, a lot of the stuff that I talk about, and more than just like how to get a job and business stuff, it's not original to me. This is stuff you learn in business school. I mean, it's for the most part, it's been proven with numbers again and again and again over the last several decades. And that's what people with PhDs in management do. Right? They formulate these theories, and then they do all these studies using numbers and things in a very scientific way to try and prove or disprove some theory, right? And so people can study it, and you get the benefit of it, and then you seem like a genius, but really you're just borrowing from this vast body of knowledge that people have worked tirelessly over the last at least 100 years to build up about how business and these sort of things work. Min, no, I just want to show that they can give me a chance because I can understand their clients. I'm not empty. Thanks. I've been here already. Yes, I do recognize. I recognize not only the name, but your little round icon there with the orange lines or orange flames or whatever it is. I recognize that. Well, good. The Brostud says, sometimes I really want to critique the interviewer during the interview for a B-word question, but I feel like that would just totally ruin my chance. Yeah, you got that right. I agree with you that a lot of people are bad at interviewing. I mean, I'm not perfect, but it's not my day job. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you there. And also, I agree that it would be nice. It would be fun, enjoyable to take them to task about, how bad of a job they're doing, especially when this is their chosen profession, especially when they say things that are inappropriate or unprofessional or even rude. Yeah, it would feel so good to do that. However, I also agree with you that there's no good that will come of that. Okay. All you're going to do is you're going to burn bridges, and it's going to go even worse for you. So when we're young, we tend to keep it real a bit more and, end up not putting a sort of firewall between our brain and our mouth when it comes to these things. You can just look at social media to see that. But as we get a bit older, especially if we want to try and be a bit more professional, we learn that, your thoughts about what everybody else is doing wrong, just keep those to yourself. It's only in very special cases that you would divulge that. And when you do, there's a real protocol on how to communicate that, because it can easily backfire if you don't do it right. Okay? So that's how those things generally work. So yeah, it's not worth your time. Don't help these people. Like, think of it this way. If you want to sort of get your own back, don't help these people to become better. If they acted like a jerk to you and they made you feel bad or something, when it was totally not necessary, they're the type of person that does that. You can get revenge a little bit, I guess, by, just don't help them. They're their own worst enemy. And one day they're going to do that to the wrong person. It's going to really come back to bite them. Okay? So maybe think of it like that, if that helps. I mean, it's true, but I don't know how much consolation is. Some people will find that very comforting. Other people just won't care. But anyway, there you go. Alessandro says, I have a phone call with a talent acquisition individual today to discuss experience and possible positions available. How do you suggest I go about this call? Here's what I would do. Okay, this person, do you know if they're recruiting for any particular jobs? Okay, if you do, go and look at the job postings that they have, that they've posted, or the job postings at their organization. Okay, like at their company. Okay, look at what they're looking for, because that shows you kind of what they value, or at least some of what they value. Okay. So when they discuss, it's like a general discussion on what jobs we could have for you, keep that stuff in mind. Maybe as much as possible, talk in terms of those requirements. Okay. So for example, if they've posted 5 jobs that say, we're looking for someone with 5 years experience in, I don't know, accountant auditing, or, like something, and that's relevant to you, you would then say, well, I do have experience in auditing, or whatever. So hopefully that resonates with them. They know what it is and they know that it's needed. And then they think, oh, this person has got some real skills here. Okay. So, something like that. Try to find out as much as you possibly can on what they might care about. Okay. And the place to start is looking at job postings they might have created. If you can't find those, okay, at the very least you could hopefully do is look at, if they have a LinkedIn profile, look at their LinkedIn profile. Look at what they themselves have, okay? So if they have, I don't know, they maybe volunteered for a charity or something, that's on their LinkedIn profile. You could, and let's say you have something similar to that. I volunteered for this, organization that tries to alleviate world hunger or something. So you would also maybe want to mention that, because if they themselves have it, presumably they themselves see the value in it, and they'll think more highly of you if they see that you have some things that they value. Okay. So, I mean, you could try and do stuff like that if you have time before your conversation. Joseph, it makes a lot of sense. So cool. Joseph, creating a sense of urgency for the employer to keep the person on the company. Now, this was what? This was in respect to, the salary raise. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, like, you can bluff. What most people want to do is they want to bluff. But you see, I don't know. I mean, presumably you have a long-term relationship with this person. This is like your boss or something, right? So you really don't want to bluff and lie to your boss, especially when they call you on it, because you've just shown them that you're the type of person that just bluffs. Everything you say has to be taken with a grain of salt. And that might not be to your advantage for them to believe this, right? So you don't want to bluff. the best thing to do is, if it's important, the best thing to do is to put in the work, get an alternative, and then it's not a bluff. You're just telling it like it is. I got an offer for this. I'm not going to tell you where. I'm not going to give you any details, but just believe me when I say I've got an offer for this much money. I would like you to give me a raise to this much. That would ensure that I stay here. And if you can't do that, then I might not be staying. Unfortunately, I'd like to stay, but I have an offer. Can you match it? Right? Then there's no bluff and there's no persuasion. It just, this is the situation. I'd very much like to stay, but they're offering me more money. It's hard to say no. Can you match it? Oh, here we go. Good brown gravy. That's awesome. Trying to change careers. Been working a trade job for the last decade and currently in school for business admin. I've had several interviews and it feels like no one wants to give me a shot. Okay. Well, there's a few things going on here. First of all, there is a syndrome. I don't know what you call it, but it's like a syndrome where people have technical skills and then they tack on management skills. Okay. And then they try and get a job as a manager. Right. So if you were in a trade, like let's say you were, I don't know, let's say you were a boilermaker or something, pipe fitter, whatever. And for 10 years. And now you've got some management skills. Okay. If you apply for a shop manager for a shop that has mechanics, electricians, laborers, and pipe fitters, okay, thinking quite rightly that, you'd be able to do that job because not only do you have the technical skills, you're a fully qualified pipe fitter, but you have the management skills too, right? So it's a reasonable assumption. The problem is that if you're going for a management type job, the reality is that a lot of people, they need more than just the skills on paper. They need to know you. They need to be able to trust you to make good decisions as a person, because the manager is now someone who's paid to make decisions. You're not just following instructions. You're deciding what's to be done. And it doesn't matter how much technical skills you have if your judgment is completely out to lunch. That's the thing. So usually there's that sort of hidden component that they don't say. Okay. Now, I don't know if you're going for a management job or not. Okay. But assuming you are, you have to get around that hurdle. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. One is for you to get a sort of technical job, like work as a pipe fitter in that shop, get a pipe fitter job, and then very soon after, try and move up to be the manager, okay? That would be one way to do it. Another way is not to talk to a recruiter, talk to the existing boss, okay, the decision maker. If you meet with them, you have a conversation with them, and eventually the outcome is that, the boss realizes that you are very similar to them. You've got a very similar knowledge of that industry. You've got a very similar approach to how a shop should be run. You have a similar worldview, like on the industry and the competitors and, the future and, things like this, or how to deal with people. Then they can say, okay, I feel like I know you and I like what I'm seeing. And that can convince them to okay, we're going to hire this person that we don't know and make them the manager. Okay. So that's if you're trying to get a management job. If you're not trying to get a management job, you're just trying to go for a trade job, but you have some business skills. Okay. The problem is that there's another assumption, depending on what you have, in terms of business skills. If you have like an MBA or something, sometimes when recruiters or hiring managers see that, they make an assumption that, first of all, this person is going to want just an astronomical amount of money. They will not be happy making what they made as a tradesperson. They will want like 50% more because they have business skills, but we're not hiring them for their business skills. We just want them as a pipe fitter. So we're making the assumption that if we hired them as a pipe fitter, they wouldn't be happy in the job. They would feel underemployed, and it would only be a matter of time before they left. So that's the problem with having the business skills on your resume if you're going for the pipe fitter job, the lower level job, right? So whichever one you're going for, it somewhat complicates things a little bit, okay? Now, hopefully you could just find someone where it's not an issue and they hire you and there you go. But if you're finding that you're looking and looking and looking and you're going to lots of interviews, but nobody seems to hire you, it may be because of those factors, okay? Thank you, Joseph. That's very nice of you to say. Your channel is awesome and you are very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Alessandro. That's also very nice of you to say. You know, that's really good because if you want to endear yourself to somebody, this is a great way of doing it. Find something that they're doing well or you think they're doing well and tell them that. You know, I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's like, how often does that happen to you in your daily life that somebody says, hey, you know, you're actually really, really good at this. You know, way to go. You know, don't ever stop because that's awesome, right? How often does that happen to you in your daily life that somebody says that, something like that to you? Probably not very often, right? So imagine how good you would feel if somebody just out of the blue just said that and it was genuine. Well, if you want somebody to think that you're awesome, do that to them. Don't just bullshit them, you know, like say something genuine that you think they're honestly doing a good job at. Good job. I can't talk today. It's one of those days. But you know what I'm saying? Like tell them something that they do well that normally you wouldn't mention, nobody mentions. And tell them like, hey, you know, you do a great job at this. You know, I think your way of doing this is fantastic. I wish I could do it as well as you can. You know, that's awesome. You know, you're awesome. And what's the end result? The end result is that the person thinks you're wonderful, right? They go, huh, well, thank you very much. You're very kind for noticing, you know? Right? So they're just a little life lesson I just wanted to give out there. You know, we're talking about like, how do you make somebody warm to you? How do you make them look upon you favorably? This is definitely part of that discussion. If you're going to a job interview and, you know, you get to it's a physical interview and you get to the building and there's a waiting area or whatever. And, you know, somebody greets you and says, hello, you know, can I help you? And you say, oh, I'm here for the job interview with this person. They say, okay, no problem. If you wouldn't mind waiting over here, I'll let them know that you're here. And you say, oh, well, thank you very much. It's very kind for you. And then, you know, maybe you go to the waiting area and, you know, the seats are very clean and neat and it's a very pleasant place. You say, oh, you know, this is a really pleasant waiting room. You know, I like you guys, I mean, here I am tripping over my words, but, you know, it's like most waiting rooms I've been in, they don't maintain them as well as you guys do. This is great. You know, something like that. And the person would go, oh, well, thank you very much for saying so, you know, and already people are thinking you're great, you know. Obviously you would do a slightly better job than, than I'm doing right now, but hopefully you get the idea. That can go a long way. And then they might have only met you for literally 1 minute, but already they think you're great. Gaming bloopers. I'm a college student and I'm doing a bachelor in technology in computer science, and my specialization is data scientist, and I want to apply as an intern in the beginning. So how can I apply? Well, I mean, usually they will have a procedure for that. For example, do you know where you're going to apply for? Like, that's the first kind of thing, right? If you don't know that, the first thing to do would be to ask. So if you're still in school, okay, I would go to, you could either go to your teacher, your professor or whatever, okay? Or you could go to like what do they call them? Like a student advisor, that kind of person. And say like, look, I would like to, I'm interested in learning about the internship programs, if there is one, could you give me some information about that? Or you could say like, if you know where you want to work as an intern or do an internship, you can contact the company. That's a great excuse to sort of initiate a conversation with a company and contact, I guess in the beginning, if you're just starting out, like probably the most basic, simple thing to do would be to go to their website. And if they have like an email address or a phone number, if you're comfortable doing the phone number and calling them, I would do that. It's a lot better. But if you're too shy or whatever to do that, you could do the email address and say, look, I'm interested in possibly doing an internship with your company if that's something you guys offer. Could you please let me know if you have an internship program, and if you do, how it works? Thank you very much. Something like that, right? Okay. A lot of times colleges and schools, they have internship programs as part of their actual educational qualification. So you would most likely do it at the school. Okay. You would go to a student advisor or a professor or something like that. And you'd say like, I'm interested in the internship program or doing an internship. How would I start? How would I go about doing that? And they will point you in the right direction. But best of luck. This is the thing. In the beginning, we don't know how stuff works. We have to ask, would you be able to help me do this? Could I possibly get some information on an internship program if it exists? We have to initiate these learning processes by asking for information. And a lot of times the person that you go to, they won't know anything really themselves, but they might be able to point you to somebody who does, right? And you just sort of go down that road, and eventually you'll get to the right person. You end up talking to the person that runs the entire internship program at your school. They will lay it out exactly how it works, and they'll be able to give you your options depending on what you're interested in doing and things like this. So best of luck. That's you're on the right track. You're welcome, Good Brown Gravy. I love your name. Sir, I am a first-year student. How to plan my career? My subject is electrical and computer science. Well, you're in luck, Rafi, because for what it's worth, I started out with a degree in electrical engineering, so it's somewhat similar. The reality is, at least for me, you can't plan your career. Okay, you can have a general idea of what you're going to do. Presumably, if you go into electrical and computer science, you're interested in working with electrical, engineering in some capacity or computer engineering in some capacity. And, or you want to be a research scientist. That's also a possibility, right? My point is that there's many, many things it could branch out into, right? You're here and you could go down all these different paths, right? And then beyond working in companies, there's also entrepreneurship. There's all kinds of things out there, right? You could not even really do it. You could teach it. You could assist people with it. You could go into sales of electrical products and, things like this. You could work in, the national research facilities and councils and things like this. There's many different paths, right? So it's really hard to plan out your whole career. That's not really something that most people do these days. It might have worked like that 50 years ago, And if you take something very, very specialized, then it's a lot easier to plan out your career because there's not really many options. Okay. I mean, I can't think of great examples off the top of my head, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So the thing with computer science and electrical science is that those are very, very general topics. Like you could go into many, many industries and you could work in many, many capacities. Like, for example, I worked in a company where we were an industrial company. We sold our products to businesses. The salespeople had degrees in engineering. They didn't have degrees in sales or marketing or business. They had degrees in engineering. And the idea behind it was that if a customer had a technical question about this highly complex piece of equipment, if I buy this product and I put it into my system and I connect it up this way, can it do this, or how does it work? And then the salesperson would be able to say, oh, well, here's how it works. And then they give you all this technical engineering related answer. And customer goes, oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'd like to put in my order then for 2 of those, right? And the salesperson says, sure, and I can help you with that right now, and there you go, right? So I mean, with a technical background, you could even go into stuff with sales. So you have technical people that are great dealing with people and enjoy dealing with people, and they really shined in those types of jobs, right? So there's many, many things. Now for me, I did not do the standard career path. Usually if you get a degree in electrical engineering, the default thing is to become an electrical engineer, right? That's what you do. Well, I came out of school and they were hiring for the railroad, not in a technical capacity, in the capacity of supervising tradespeople, electricians and mechanics and things. And so I went down that path. And I mean, it's a non-standard path. And I could never have predicted that. So that's how things go. You get a thing, and it also is a function of who's hiring and who's looking for someone with those skills. And you end up in an industry you never even thought about. So it's very hard to make a plan, okay? Just be open to things, okay? And nowadays, what's changed since I had this problem was we've got the internet, and you've got Google, and you've got YouTube, and you've got all these resources. You can go and look, what people with that qualification end up doing, and you'll see like it'll vary widely. So hopefully that makes sense. That's an intelligent question. That's a very intelligent question. And I know a lot of young people struggle with that. Like, I guess thinking back, my issue at the time was that, for example, when I was in engineering, nobody mentioned what you would do really after you graduated. Like, the assumption was you would work as an electrical engineer, right? Nobody mentioned the situation that I found myself in, which was that, okay, some people are hiring for, junior electrical engineers, like engineers in training, and it pays this much. But then there's all these people over here that are hiring people with engineering degrees, where it's not an engineering job. You're not doing design, but they're looking for people with that qualification that pay this much in these like weird other industries that nobody ever mentioned, was a thing. So like thinking back, I remember that's what kind of threw me. So there you go. That's probably the most boring story I've told in a couple of weeks, which is saying something. I have another 5-10 minutes or so we'll just get through the next couple of questions. You're welcome, Gaming Bloopers. Nezar, if I'm saying that right, says, hi, I've been in a position for 8 years, and every time I try to change department, my manager stops me because the team I am in is always understaffed. It's been frustrating because I'm no longer learning. Yeah, that's a relatively common kind of thing, isn't it? And understaffed, it's like in business, you're always understaffed. Like that's the whole point. I mean, if ever you get to the point where you feel like, oh no, we've got enough people, We barely have enough work to keep these people busy all the time. Then you've got too many people, right? That you could be a little bit leaner. Like if that's how you honestly felt, everyone honestly felt, right? So it's kind of like a permanent thing. Now, what would be the reason why they're understaffed? Out of curiosity, is it because they don't hire, or is it because people quit? Sometimes you get people running, screaming from a bad job, and they just can't keep people in the role. So I don't know if that's what's going on. And then you go on. Any suggestion on what to do as I'm getting technical certificates, but nobody will hire me without the experience in that specific field? Okay. So you're trying to change departments, but you can't. But it seems like that's kind of irrelevant because you keep getting technical certificates, but nobody's hiring you without experience. Oh, I see. So you want experience in the field that you're trying to get a new job in, and you're trying to get that experience by transferring to another department. Okay. Listen, the solution to all these problems usually is networking. Any kind of problem of you can do the job, but they won't hire you because of some silly artificial restriction. Like, oh, you really need this, or you really need this experience. Now, if that's legitimate, it's legitimate. But if it's bullshit, if it's artificial and it's not a thing, the solution to those types of problems are networking. Okay, because you're not getting hired based on your resume in those cases. You're getting hired based on who you are as a person. Okay, if you could sit down with the boss and have an hour and a half conversation about the industry, about the future, about the best way to run that kind of operation, about the best way to solve some of the problems that the boss is having, and what might be the solution to those. If you have an hour and a half conversation about that stuff, okay, and they like what they hear from you, they would no longer hire you because of what it says on your resume. Now they're hiring you because they had that conversation and they heard those things come out of your mouth, right? I mean, obviously you have the skills, right? But what I'm saying is that you prove this not by doing a job interview with a recruiter who doesn't know anything about the job anyway. You prove it by having a free-flowing conversation with the hiring manager, and then they see that you're capable of doing it, right? That's my point. So that's usually the way to get around these kinds of deadlocks, okay? So if it were me and I had to make a recommendation, I would say learn networking. Learn how to do that. It's to your advantage, okay? Also, if you want to move up to a higher level, those skills are kind of necessary anyway. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone, learning that stuff. Now, obviously, it might look like I'm a little bit biased because I've got a course right here that tells you how to do that, right? But listen, regardless of where you learn it from, learn it, okay? Because that's usually the solution to those kinds of problems. One more question here, because I got to sign off soon. Joe G says, my current position offered me a per diem job upon graduating graduate school this May. How can I convince them to give me a contracted position with benefits and a good salary between now and then? Well, the answer is you can't, okay? But they're going to do what they're going to do, okay? But what you can do is you could say, if it were me, this is what I would do, okay? I would go to my boss, my immediate boss, or whoever the decision maker is that has the power to give you this position, okay, this contracted position, whoever is the decision maker there. And if there's multiple decision makers that could all grant you this request, I'd certainly go to the one that I had the most rapport with. And I would say, look, just for the, first of all, you go to them when they're not busy or stressed out or tired they, you know what I mean? When they're in a good mood and, maybe immediately after lunch on a Friday or something, and say like, look, just so you know, here's my situation. I'm going to be graduating. I'm going to be going back to school, blah, 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 but if there was a possibility of getting a contracted position here, okay, doing this work, I would jump at that. Okay. I just want you to know that. I don't know if it's possible or not. And I know that you can't really say either way, but if it was, I just want you to know that I would be very enthusiastic about that. And, I would consider it an amazing experience. And I would do my best to excel in that role if that's a possibility. Just thought you'd like to know. So then they get the message. Okay. It's very professionally delivered. It's very clear. You could even, hey, if your term is running out or you've got to go back to school, you've got really nothing to lose. I would tell all the decision makers that. I wouldn't talk to them all together. I would talk to each one-on-one under similar circumstances and just communicate that to them. And that's all you can do. And if the option exists, then you've made the best sort of case for yourself. If it was never a possible option in the first place, there's not much anyone can do. At least you sort of probed for getting that if it was a possibility. Okay, that's the only thing you can do, right? That's what I would do. Some tips for multitasking. I don't know, stay organized. That's about it. Some people naturally are better at multitasking than others. Other people, like myself, you just have focus on one thing at a time. I got a single core CPU in here, not a multi-core. But what helps you switch back between many things is just being very organized. So you can quickly pick up this other task where you left off by loading it back into your head very quickly. That's been sort of my way of working. But it depends on what type of person you are and what type of personality you have. So there isn't like really a one-size-fits-all way of doing it. And okay, last question. So Nezar says, thank you very much. Third time I get that same suggestion based on my current situation. I do need to get better at networking. Listen, don't worry too much about it. It's something that people work at a lot of times their entire careers, okay? So you can pick up a few basics very quickly, okay? There's a few like just basic principles that you can use and they can be very effective, right? I talk about most of those in my course. And it's sort of like a step-by-step how to do it. Like do this, do this, do this. Here's a concept, here's a concept, here's a concept. So based on all of those, let's put, say, a message together here. And now you know why the message is the way it is, things like that. Okay, so I've talked about that. But there's more advanced sort of stuff for specific situations and things like that people work at their whole lives, right? But the basics that give you like 80% of the benefits, they're pretty simple. But the thing is, the people that don't work on it don't tend to get good at it, right? Like you have to be aware of it, realize it's maybe something that you want to try and get good at, and then you have to try and learn it. And if you do that, chances are you're gonna be up and running pretty soon. Okay, so thank you very much to everybody that's here. I see there's 30 people here. You guys are awesome. Thank you for tuning in. In case it's not glaringly obvious, I've got 2 courses. If either of those courses, it's hard to do this because my screen is backwards, but if either of those look like something you might be interested, check out the link in the description. I've got a lot more information on both of those courses. I've got videos that are like half an hour long that gives you, it's like a Q&A of like how the course works so you kind of know what you're getting into. It's all stated up front. Those are on my channel. So check those out if that's interesting. Other than that, I will be back here next Wednesday, probably at the same time, probably. But you can catch me then. If you have questions, this is the way to get some answers. You guys have been great. Thank you for asking such intelligent questions, and thank you for sticking with my rambling, scatterbrained kind of way of explaining it. And take care of yourselves, and I will see you next week.